Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. We are live tonight from Helsinki, Finland, north enough that the sky is still glowing. Sun going up or down, not clear. President Trump was, of course, here today with Russian President Vladimir Putin. They concluded their first one-on-one summit meeting. We interviewed the president after they finished. We'll be showing you some excerpts throughout the show tonight with our full extended interview with the president tomorrow night on the show. At a press conference at the summit, the president hailed the meeting as a turning point in America-Russia relations. Here's part of it.
Our relationship has never been worse than it is now. However, that changed as of about 4 hours ago. I really believe that.
The president also addressed the Robert Mueller investigation into Russia collusion. Here's part of that.
I think that the probe is a disaster for our country. I think it's kept us apart. It's kept us separated. There was no collusion at all. Everybody knows it.
Fox News White House correspondent John Roberts is here, has been here all day in Helsinki, and he joins us now with the recap. Hey, John.
You know, the president's been looking forward to this for a long time because he said back during the campaign, I think it's important for the United States to have better relations with Russia. When you have so many nuclear warheads and so many of them are pointed at each other, isn't it better to get along than to not get along? But the president got roundly criticized today for sort of giving away the farm with Vladimir Putin. One of the things that he was criticized most for was not sticking up for U.S. intelligence when he was asked at that press conference who he believes on Russian meddling. The intelligence community of the United States, which has said that Russia definitely meddled in the 2016 election, or Vladimir Putin, who told him yet again that he didn't have anything to do with it. Listen here.
Dan Coates came to me and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
And after the president said that, Dan Coates came to him again today and said it's Russia. In a statement released, he said, quote, "We have been clear in our assessments of Russian meddling in the 2016 election and their ongoing pervasive efforts to undermine our democracy, and we will continue to provide unvarnished and objective intelligence in support of our national security." Something else, Tucker, that raised eyebrows ahead of the summit was when the president tweeted out that the relations between the United States and Russia are at a historic low, and the president blamed that on the United States, on stupidity and other things, and as well the Mueller investigation. When he was asked about that at the press conference, the president did not dial back much. Listen here.
I hold both countries responsible. I think that the United States has been foolish. I think we've all been foolish. We should have had this dialogue a long time ago, a long time, frankly, before I got to office. And I think we're all to blame.
Now, the president's remarks today and his posture with Vladimir Putin brought a lot of the expected criticism from Democrats, but many people in the Republican Party, particularly in the leadership, weren't very happy with what went on today. Listen to this from Paul Ryan. Quote, "The president must appreciate that Russia is not our ally. There is no moral equivalence between the United States and Russia, which remains hostile to our most basic values and ideas." The way that I read it, what happened today, Tucker, was he thought it was important to have a dialogue with Vladimir Putin, almost a parallel with Kim Jong-un, right, where he was willing to kind of rise above everything else that was going on out there, not get bogged down in the details of it, even though it would appear like he was sort of throwing, the intelligence community and other U.S. institutions under the bus for the sake of trying to build a better relationship or at least get things back on track.
Certainly raised a lot of conversation. It'd be interesting to know if Paul Ryan believes that our ally Saudi Arabia shares our values and ideals. Maybe we'll have that conversation.
That's one of the questions that you are so famous for asking.
I'm interested. John Roberts, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Well, today's news conference, the president suggested he might be willing to believe Putin's denials that Russia meddled in our last presidential election. Watch.
So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
Well, that set off a tidal wave of criticism. Former CIA Director John Brennan tweeted, and we're quoting, "Donald Trump's press conference performance in Helsinki rises to and exceeds the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanors," in other words, grounds for impeachment. And we're quoting now, "It was nothing short of treasonous. Not only were Trump's comments imbecilic, he is wholly in the pocket of Putin. Republican patriots, Cohen, Where are you? What to make of all this? Joining us now is a man who has covered several Russia-U.S. summits around the world. NYU professor emeritus and Nation contributing editor Stephen Cohen, one of the country's preeminent Russia scholars. Professor Cohen, thanks a lot for joining us. Assess, if you would, the reaction today to this press conference and to this summit between Putin and Trump.
The reaction by most of the media, by the Democrats, by the anti-Trump people, is like mob violence. I've never seen anything like it in my life. This is the President of the United States doing what every president, Tucker, since Franklin Delano Roosevelt did in 1943 with Stalin, meeting with the head of the Kremlin. And every president since Eisenhower, a Republican by the way, has met with the leader of the Kremlin for one existential purpose: to avoid war between the two nuclear superpowers. Today, in my considered scholarly long-time judgment, relations between the United States and Russia are more dangerous than they have ever, let me repeat, ever been, including the Cuban Missile Crisis. I want my president to do, I didn't vote for this president, but I want my president to do what every other president has done. Sit with the head of the other nuclear superpower and walk back the conflicts that could lead to war, whether they be in Syria, Ukraine, in the Baltic nations, in these accusations of cyber attacks. Every president has been encouraged to do that and applauded by both parties, not Trump. Look what they did to him today. They held a kangaroo court. They found him guilty. And then you have the former head of the United States CIA, who himself ought to be put under oath and asked about his role in inventing Russiagate, calling the President of the United States treasonous. What have we come to in this country? And what's going to happen in the future?
Well, those are questions that adults ought to be discussing, I think. But tell me if my assessment is wrong. It seems almost as if some in our leadership class on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, seek increased conflict with Russia. Do you think that's right? And if it is, why?
All right, you've asked a fundamental question. Do they know what they're doing? I don't know. They seem to hate or resent the idea of Trump as president, that they've all lost all sense of American national security. I would ask them a question. If you ever get these people on, ask them this question for yourself, for me, for the nation. Do you, these people who are hunting Trump, do you prefer trying to impeach Trump to trying to avert war with nuclear Russia? That's the bottom line. And that's where we're at today. Because when I listen to why they denounce the summit, that's what they're doing.
Look, and I'm in no way defending Russia about, with which I have no connection whatsoever. And I'm basically agnostic, and I take it as a matter of faith that they seek to influence the U.S. government, undermine our elections. None of that surprises me at all. I just don't understand why Russia uniquely is considered an unacceptable partner for conversation, while at the same time we are happy to have close, intimate relations with Saudi Arabia, for example, the government of China, for example, both more repressive than the government of Russia. I'm missing this. Why the emphasis on Russia?
People have written books about this, historians. Why is it that Russia seems to be our wicked witch of the East, when Russia has more in common with the United States? It's a Christian country. It's a big country. It was a frontier country. We were allies during World War II. I mean, Russia, this will upset people, but historically, Russia defeated Nazi Germany in Europe. We defeated the Japanese in the Pacific. We were great allies. After that, things went bad. Who's to blame? Historians have written lots of books. But why, since the end of the Soviet Union, there's no communism? Let me ask you a question. You know, DC, why do these people dislike Putin, the president of post-communist Russia, more than they ever seem to dislike the communist leaders? It's more about us, Tucker, than it's about them. And this is really dangerous, not permitting the president of the United States to keep us safe.
And I think it is no defense of Putin to ask that exact question. I'm just going to repeat it for our viewers in case they missed it. Why do so many people in charge now dislike the current leader of Russia more than they dislike the communists who killed tens of millions? I don't know. I can't answer it, but thank you for asking.
There is an answer, but we would need a lot of time. And a psychiatrist.
Well, we'll have it. I hope you'll come back.
And a psychiatrist.
Thank you. Great to see you, Professor Stephen Cohen. Well, in response to the day's events, the left has adopted hatred of Russia as the new litmus test, the single litmus test for patriotism as an American. Unless you agree with them, you are not a good American. Some of us resent that. Some on the left are even willing to demand a military government in our country as long as it's sufficiently anti-Moscow. Think we're overstating? We're not. Stephen Cohen, a different one, this one an elected representative, a Democrat from Memphis, Tennessee, tweeted this today, quote, "Where are our military folks? The commander-in-chief is in the hands of our enemy." So here you have an elected representative calling for a military coup in our country in the name of democracy. Richard Goodstein is a lawyer. He advised both Hillary Clinton's presidential campaigns. He joins us tonight. Are you comfortable with that, Richard? No. Here you have an elected official calling for a military coup in the name of preserving democracy. Now, look, there are parts of the press conference I didn't care for, but that's a different level of extremism. Calling for a coup? I haven't heard anyone mention that. This is a member of Congress. What do you think of that?
I don't think that Stephen Cohen of Tennessee is calling, if you know him, he's not calling for any kind of military coups. Here's
what was he saying? Wait, hold on. What was he saying?
He's saying the president took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the United States of America. Dick Cheney said
that's not what he said. He said, and I'm quoting, I'm looking at it, "Where are our military folks? The president is in the hands of the enemy." He's calling on the United States military, which, of course, serves under the president of the United States, to take action to rectify this situation where the president is in the hands of the enemy. That's lunatic.
No.
Okay? This is a member of Congress. You can't concede that that's lunatic? It's crazy?
I think the point he's trying to make is the following. For Donald Trump to be standing right next to Putin and be incapable, the guy who said, "You're fired," is incapable of challenging face-to-face anybody. He couldn't do it at the G7, he couldn't do it at NATO, and he couldn't do it today. And again, Dick Cheney is the one. Let me just finish the sentence. Dick Cheney said this attack by the Russians was an act of war. So what Stephen Cohen is basically saying is Putin, I mean, for whatever he's got on Trump or nothing, Trump seems to be doing his bidding, and that's of concern to every American.
Wait, you know what? No, hold on. No. Maybe he has a different view of it than you do. That does not make him a traitor to his country. That does not make him a quisling. It does not make him someone who should be overthrown by a military coup. People have policy differences. Some people think Russia is the preeminent threat to America. Others don't. Trump is in the latter category. That does not make him a traitor.
Well, I didn't say
do you understand the distinction? Or have we gotten to a place where it's okay to call people traitors if you disagree with their policy?
Listen, Tucker, Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney and, go through the list of McConnell and Paul Ryan. I know you don't care what they say, but they're not lefties, okay? You can't assign...
I'm not saying they are. No, but I'm not... You're totally missing it. This is not a left-right thing. This is a neocon realist thing.
Well,
so people who thought the Iraq War was a great idea and think that we should overthrow Assad in Syria and barge into Lebanon and remake the world and hope it works this time, those people are deeply offended. It's not a left-right thing. It's a ruling class versus everybody else thing, and you know that. But can we just pull back from calling each other traitors?
Absolutely, but I would quote your Fox colleague, Neil Cavuto, who said it's disgusting, and it's not a left-right thing. He said it's a right or wrong thing, and I agree with him. It's wrong.
That's okay. You may think it's wrong, but we should establish a line, and the line is this. You don't call people unpatriotic for the crime of disagreeing with you. Like, for example, I'll ask you this question. Do you really believe that Russia there's no defense of Russia. I'm not that interested in Russia. But do you really believe they're a preeminent enemy in the world, bigger than China? Do you really think they're the most immoral country in the world, more immoral than Saudi Arabia? Do you really think that? Because everyone on television is pretending that today. Why?
Sorry that I'm using Dick Cheney as a frame of reference. He's the one who said what the Russians did was an act of war.
I'm asking.
China actually hasn't done acts of war. I'm asking what you think. Against us.
So China is less. No, but let's have an adult conversation really quick. In 1 minute we have. Do you really believe that Russia is a greater threat to America's interests than China?
I think that that Russia
Say that
left
with
to
a
its
straight
own
face. I dare you.
devices, I think left to its own devices, Russia would undermine our democracy. I think China would take us on economically, happily, okay? But I don't think China's out to get us.
But they're not really a threat to us.
Well, I'm just saying.
Because everyone in D.C. is on their payroll.
And I
As
think
you know.
And for every day that Donald Trump shows himself unable to stand up to Putin, every foreign leader in the world is going, hell, maybe we should kind of gain some ground in the U.S. too. That's the concern.
Yeah. I'm a little baffled by the lack of perspective. And again, by the way, I've never for a minute doubted and never will doubt that Russia seeks to undermine us. They have for 100 years. They'll continue to do it. But, let's be real. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, Richard, thank you. Great to see you.
My pleasure. Thank you.